A new month arrived in Nero Vega, which meant one thing: phone day. The monthly communication privilege had become a tradition inside Reaper headquarters. 1 day every month, 10 minutes, one call off world. For most contestants, it was a luxury. For Sparkle Doom, it had become something more. A reminder. A connection. A chance to remember there was still a galaxy beyond the Eclipse. The announcement appeared across the lounge screens. Monthly communication privileges available. Plum immediately launched herself from the couch. Phone day. Aurora laughed. Ellie rolled her eyes. Mira smiled. Even Pines looked mildly less grumpy than normal, which was basically excitement by Pines standards. Aurora always called first. The screen flickered. Then Kenny and Celine appeared. Aurora immediately smiled. There they are. Celine smiled back. Our favorite child. Aurora pointed. You have one child, exactly. Kenny laughed. The conversation flowed naturally. Updates, stories, minor injuries, training, challenges. Aurora carefully avoiding mentioning Kale. Kenny carefully pretending he didn't know about Kale. Both failed. Eventually, Kenny leaned back. You look happy. Aurora narrowed her eyes. No idea what you're talking about. Celine immediately started laughing. Kenny pointed dramatically. Definitely a boy. Dad. The old champion looked very pleased with himself. The 10 minutes vanished quickly. Before the connection ended, Kenny leaned closer. Remember? Aurora smiled. The board remembers who died. Kenny nodded. And history? Aurora finished it for him. Remembers who lived. His smile softened. Proud of you, kid. The call ended. Aurora sat quietly for a moment afterward, just letting that sit. Ellie's call with Aaron was exactly what everyone expected. 5 minutes of strategy, 3 minutes of politics, 2 minutes of fatherly concern. And somehow all of it sounding identical. When the call ended, Ellie looked completely refreshed, like she'd just attended a military briefing, which honestly she probably had. Our Plum's call with her mother was mostly her mother making sure she was eating. Again, Plum insisted she was. Nobody believed her, least of all her mother. Then came Mira. The room quieted. Not because they were worried anymore, because they were curious. Mira smiled nervously as she opened the connection. The screen flickered. A young man appeared. Dark hair. Warm eyes. The sort of smile that immediately softened when he saw her. Mira lit up, actually lit up. Aurora immediately noticed. Oh, Plum noticed too. Okay. Mira immediately pointed at them. No. The young man laughed. Your friends? Aurora stepped into view. Unfortunately. The man laughed again. Mira looked happier than anyone had seen her all month. The conversation was easy, comfortable, natural, the kind of conversation only people who genuinely cared about each other could have. Then eventually the young man sighed. You should probably call somebody more important next month. Mira blinked. What? He smiled softly. Your house, your family, people who matter. The room grew quiet. Mira stared at him, then shook her head. No. The young man laughed. Mira. She folded her arms. Nothing involving you is a waste. The room instantly melted. Aurora physically grabbed her own chest. Plum collapsed sideways. Ellie covered her face. The young man looked completely defeated. Mira then casually pointed toward Aurora. Besides, I represent House Reach now. Aurora immediately looked proud. The young man laughed. That sounds dangerous. It is. The call ended with both of them smiling, and for the first time since joining Sparkle Doom, Mira looked completely at peace. Eventually, only one call remained. Pines, as always. The old Reaper quietly stood, collected his communicator, and walked toward the balcony, as always. Nobody thought much of it. Except Plum. Because Plum had spent almost 2 years watching the same thing happen, every month. The same routine, the same silence, the same expression afterward. Her curiosity finally won. Plum waited, then quietly followed him. The balcony overlooked the city. Pine sat alone near the edge. The communicator glowed softly. A video played. Plum frowned. She moved closer, then froze. The screen showed a much younger Pines, and beside him, Lyra, both laughing, both smiling, both leaning against one another. The recording looped. Again. And again. And again. Plum watched silently, then finally asked, Why doesn't she answer? Pines didn't look surprised, like he'd known somebody would ask eventually. She can't. Plum frowned. Did you make her mad? The old Reaper laughed once, a small broken sound. No. Then finally, she's dead. The words hit like a hammer. Plum froze. The city seemed to disappear. What? Pine stared at the screen. 17 years. Plum felt sick. What? The old Reaper smiled sadly. 17 years. Inside the lounge, the others had noticed Plum's absence. One by one they approached. Aurora, Ellie, Mira. They stepped onto the balcony, then saw the screen, saw Lyra, saw Pines, and understood something was wrong. Pines looked down, his hands trembling. Lyra discovered what dawn fruit really did. Silence. Long-term consumption. Continuous use. It slows aging. The girls listened quietly. Pines swallowed. She stopped taking it. Aurora frowned. Why? A sad smile appeared. Because she was Lyra. Nobody understood. Pines laughed softly. She didn't want centuries. The tears started, slowly. She said life was special because it ended. The girls stayed silent. Pines stared at the recording. Turns out, he smiled sadly. The fruit had been suppressing a cancer the entire time. The realization hit them all at once. Aurora covered her mouth. Ellie looked away. Mira's eyes filled instantly. Plum sat beside him. The old Reaper's voice cracked when she stopped. He couldn't finish. For a moment. Then, it came back. The tears finally escaped. Pines didn't stop them, didn't hide them, didn't pretend. She died under a dawn fruit tree. His voice broke completely. On our little property. The girls were crying now too. Pines laughed weakly through the tears. The stubborn woman spent 30 years trying to convince me to eat vegetables. A small laugh escaped Aurora, then Mira, then Plum. Even through the sadness, Pines smiled. Last thing she said before she passed was that I was still impossible. That broke everyone. Again. The old Reaper stared at the recording. She died in my arms. Silence. Nobody knew what to say. Eventually Aurora sat beside him, then Ellie, then Mira, then Plum, one by one, until nobody was sitting alone anymore. Aurora wiped her eyes, so that's why. Pines looked over. What? Aurora smiled sadly. I always wondered why she never came. The birthdays, the celebrations, the meetings. She looked out toward the city. I just imagined she was out somewhere, lost in a science project, living in a jungle, too busy to come home. Pines smiled, a genuine smile. Through tears. She's dead. Then softly. But that's a much nicer way to imagine her. The group sat together quietly, watching the recording, watching Lyra laugh, watching the past, and for the first time, understanding why Pines never missed phone day. Much later. The others finally drifted off to bed. The lounge was quiet. The city glowed. Pines remained alone, his communicator resting on the table. A notification appeared. Private message received. The sender made him pause. Darius Voss. Pines frowned. Opened it. Only one sentence. I'd like to talk. The old Reaper stared at it for a long moment, then slowly locked the communicator. The girls didn't need this. Not yet. He stood, quietly, and headed for bed, keeping the message to himself, outside. The city slept, and somewhere in Nero Vega. The kill leader waited for an answer,